Ryu is iconic because he represents something rare in gaming. Self-control over power. Anyone can win, but not everybody can master themselves. Without wasting any much time, we'll get right to it. In a world where strength is everything, Ryu chose restraint. And that single choice is why Ryu still matters over 30 years later.
Here comes a new challenger.
Ryu isn't the fastest. He is not the strongest. He doesn't trash talk. He doesn't show off. He throws fireballs. He uppercuts. He walks forward. That's it. And yet, he became the face of fighting games. Why? Because Ryu doesn't represent victory. He represents the struggle to be better.
Here comes a new challenger.
Most characters want to fight a tournament. Ryu fights to understand himself. He trains alone, no audience, no praise, while others ask, how do I defeat my enemy? Ryu asks, how do I defeat my weaknesses? That's why Ryu is always traveling, always training, always unfinished. He's the eternal student, and that's what makes him human.
Here comes a new challenger.
Isn't iconic because he's strong. He's iconic because he's kind. In a world full of fighters who shout, flex, and throw punches to prove dominance, Ryu moves differently. He doesn't need to be loud. He doesn't need to be feared. And when he messes up, even by accident, he takes responsibility. No excuses, no blaming others, no walking away. That moment where Ryu pays for the spilled milk or quietly helps someone in need, those small things may seem insignificant, but they tell you everything about him. It's not about the fight. It's about the man fighting to be better every single day. Ryu understands a truth most people miss. Power without kindness is just violence. Strength without responsibility is nothing. That's why he chooses discipline over ego. Why he bows after a fight. Why he respects every opponent, even those who think they don't deserve it. While others chase fear, Ryu chases mastery. While others chases fame, Ryu chases improvement. While others chase victory at any cost, Ryu chases honor. And that's why he lasted over 30 years. Not because he has the hardest hits, not because he's flashy, not because he's the loudest in the room. Ryu lasts because he fights the hardest battle of all, the one inside himself, against anger, against pride, against the temptation to hurt those weaker or careless. That's why he walks alone. That's why he lives simply. That's why he keeps training. Because the real fight isn't outside, it's within. And in that quiet, patient, and disciplined way, Ryu shows us that true strength isn't measured by what you can destroy, but by what you protect, fix, and respect. Power without kindness is violence. Kindness without strength is weakness. Ryu has both. And that balance, that discipline, that quiet responsibility, that is what makes Ryu iconic. Another challenger is coming your way. Ryu was offered something everyone wants: power without limits. Satsui no Hado strength fueled by rage. Victory guaranteed. Fear erased. Akuma embraced it. Evil Ryu surrendered to it. And Ryu, he resisted. Not because he couldn't use it, but because he refused to lose himself. That's the hardest fight Ryu ever faced. Not Akuma, not Bison, himself. Another fighter is coming your way. That Ryu loses a lot, and they're right. But that's the point. Ryu isn't written to dominate, he's written to endure. Every loss teaches him something. Every defeat refines him. Because Ryu's story isn't about being the strongest man alive. It's about being the strongest man he can become. Here comes a new challenger. Ryu is what happens when pain wins, when control breaks, when frustration takes over, when discipline collapses. He's powerful, terrifying, efficient, but hollow. True Ryu is quieter, calmer, slower, and that's why he lasts. Because power gained too fast always destroys its owner. Another fight is coming your way. Ryu resonates because real life works the same way. Anyone can chase shortcuts, anyone can give in to anger, anyone can lash out, but self-control, that takes discipline. Ryu shows us that growth isn't loud. It's lonely, repetitive, it's boring, and that's why it works. Ryu doesn't promise greatness. He promises progress. Here comes a new challenger. Embodies the idea that true strength comes from constant self-improvement. He is not interested in fame or fortune. His battles are mirrors of his own growth. Every fight, every loss, every victory is a lesson. Philosophy. Life is a series of challenges meant to refine you, not to define you. Ryu's mantra: there is no finish line in the path of mastery. Ryu connects with people through mutual respect and shared struggle, not through words. Every battle teaches him empathy, courage, and understanding. Philosophy. True connection comes from shared challenges, not social performances. In short, Ryu's life is a lesson in discipline, humility, self-awareness, and the relentless pursuit of improvement. He's a martial artist, yes, but also a philosopher whose dojo is the world, and whose teacher is every opponent he faces. Just the character. He's a question. What kind of strength do you want? The kind that wins today, or the kind that lasts forever? Because real power isn't domination, it's restraint. It's knowing you could destroy everything and choosing not to. Satsui no Hado is not evil. It is the raw hunger that tests the soul. Every fighter meets it. Some fall, some rise. The question is, will you let it define you? The Satsui no Hado whispers promises of unstoppable power, but raw strength alone isn't victory. Thousands presence reminds Ryu that true power is knowing when to fight and when to resist. Darkness tempting wisdom is the shield. Before the scar, the competition was clean. Sagat was the summit, not cruel, not arrogant, just undeniable. To reach him meant you had already surpassed the world. Ryu wasn't chasing Sagat, he was chasing truth through combat. Sagat simply stood where that truth could be tested. Their rivalry wasn't personal, it was natural. Sagat represented what happens when discipline hardens into certainty. A man who had already arrived. Ryu represented motion, a fighter still becoming. When they faced each other, it wasn't hatred in the ring, it was recognition. Sagat saw in Ryu a future that didn't ask permission. Ryu saw Sagat in a standard that could not be ignored. Every strike was a question. Every exchange was honest. There was no fear yet, no resentment, only pressure. Pressure revealed structure, and pressure revealed the truth. Sagat was complete, but no longer changing. Ryu was incomplete, and that made him dangerous. The competition was fair, because both men were right. Sagat was the proof of mastery. Ryu was the proof that mastery is never final. Then came the moment that changed everything. But before the scar, there was respect. And respect is the purest form of competition. While Ryu walked the lonelier path, the path of restraint, choosing to wander, to train, to fight himself more than anyone else. Because Ryu understands something, Sagat had to suffer to learn. That power without balance doesn't elevate you, it devours you. Sagat's rage makes him louder, heavier, more destructive, but never freer. Every tiger shot fired in anger pulls him further from peace, while Ryu's silence, his humility, his refusal to celebrate victory is what truly haunts Sagat. Not the loss, but the absence of the hatred behind it. That's why the answer will always lie in the heart of battle. Here comes a new challenger. Ryu is iconic because he is the eternal student. He fights to understand himself, not to win. Every loss sharpens his discipline. Every victory humbles him. He represents the quiet struggle against ego, rage, and shortcuts. Ryu and Ken together are iconic because they show two paths, born of the same origin. Same training, same techniques, different philosophies. Ryu seeks control and purpose. Ken embraces passion and expression. Their rivalry is respect. Their bond is balance. And in the end, it always comes back to Ryu. Because no matter who stands across from him, his real opponent is himself. As long as Ryu keeps walking forward, learning, restraining, and fighting with intent, Street Fighter has a soul. Ryu carries that soul quietly. He doesn't announce himself, he doesn't celebrate, he simply shows up again and again to test his spirit through combat. Ken may blaze like fire, rivals may rise and fall, errors may change, but Ryu remains the constant. He reminds the world that strength without purpose is empty, and purpose without strength is false. As long as Ryu walks the road, Street Fighter isn't just a game about winning, it's a journey. Ryu keeps moving because stopping would mean settling. Settling would mean certainty, and certainty is the enemy of growth. He fights not to dominate, but to measure himself against the world. Each opponent is a mirror. Each class strips away illusion. Ken stands as proof that another path is valid, that joy, love, and fire don't weaken a warrior. But Ryu chooses restraint again and again because his battle is deeper, quieter, heavier. That's why generations return to him. Not because he changes, but because we do. And every time we pick Ryu, we're saying we're still willing to learn. Ryu never claims enlightenment. That's the point. The moment a fighter believes he has arrived, he stops listening. Ryu listens to his breath, to his fists, to the space between strikes. The world tries to define him as a symbol, a legend, a face of a franchise. Ryu rejects all of that. He remains a man on a path, not a statue at the end of it. Ken could step away, build a life, lose it, reclaim it. Others chase titles, revenge, chaos. Ryu keeps walking because for him, strength isn't something you own. It's something you borrow, test, and refine. And as long as there's another step to take, another lesson to learn, Ryu will move forward, quiet, disciplined, unfinished. Here comes a new challenge. Ryu is the heart of Street Fighter, the eternal warrior chasing mastery, not victory. Street Fighter 6, he embodies discipline, focus, and adaptability. Simple yet deep. A character anyone can pick up but never fully master. He's iconic because he represents the pure essence of fighting, growth, and honor, and the endless pursuit of strength. A timeless symbol for the series. What makes him truly iconic is his philosophy. Ryu fights to grow, to test himself against the world, and face challenges head on. Other fighters may come and go, but Ryu stands as a constant, a measuring stick, a mentor figure, and a reminder of what it means to be a warrior. Ryu is the embodiment of the classic Shoto archetype, disciplined, humbled, and endlessly striving to improve. His focus is training, honor, and self improvement, which resonates universally. He's not flashy or gimmicky like some characters. He's pure fighting at its essence, which made him perfect for the first generation of games. He is iconic because he never cheats. The journey. When power tempts him, he refuses it. When victory is possible through rage, he walks away. In genre built on domination, Ryu represents discipline. He shows that true strength isn't about how hard you hit, but how much of yourself you're willing to confront. You became the standard because he never tried to be special. No crown, no legacy, no obsession. Just repetition, failure, and reflection. Every fighter measures themselves against Ryu, not because he's the strongest, but because he's the most honest. He fights the same way he lives, with respect for the path. Icons usually freeze in time. Ryu doesn't. He ages, he changes, he questions himself, and that's why he lasts. As long as people believe growth matters more than power, Ryu remains relevant. His journey isn't nostalgic, it's ongoing, and that is why Ryu will never fade. Ryu doesn't fight to be watched, he fights to understand. No crowd, no spotlight, just the sound of his own breath and the truth of combat. In a world chasing attention, Ryu's solitude is timeless, and that's why he resonates across generations. And that silence is what made him legendary. Most heroes reach a final form. Ryu never does. He questions every victory, every technique, every belief. That self doubt isn't weakness, it's discipline. Ryu stays human, and that humanity is what keeps him iconic. The world offered Ryu shortcuts, power without discipline, rage without consequence. Satsui no Hado whispered that domination was destiny, but Ryu chose a harder path, strength without corruption, balance without pride. While others failed or ruled, Ryu endured, not as a god, not as a king, but a man who refuses to let darkness decide who he becomes. Journey continues as a quiet defiance against stagnation, while others settle into titles and legacies. He refuses to stop becoming. Each road he walks strips him down to essentials: discipline, humility, and the will to face himself without excuses. The power within is vast, but what defines Ryu is not how hard he can strike, it's how carefully he chooses when not to. Every battle is a test of balance. Every victory is a reminder that strength without purpose is empty. He listens to the earth beneath his feet and the breath within his chest, grounding himself so the darkness of excess never takes hold. With Goken's teachings guiding him in his own doubts, sharpening his resolve, Ryu moves forward not to conquer the world, but to understand his place within it. As long as there is a path to walk and a lesson to learn, his journey will never end. And as the world around him changes, Ryu remains constant in motion, adapting without losing his core. New generations rise, new forms of power emerge, and battles grow louder and more chaotic. Yet Ryu answers them with clarity rather than force. He becomes a living bridge between eras, a reminder that true strength is earned through patience, not shortcuts. Even when he stands alone, there is no loneliness in his stride, only purpose. The journey shapes him into something greater than a fighter, a symbol of balance in an unbalanced world, walking forward so others may remember that mastery begins within. Ryu's journey was never about trophies, applause, or being crowned the strongest. It was about self confrontation, a lifelong walk toward balance with no finish line, beginning in isolation under Goken, where Ryu learned that early that martial arts are not tools for domination, but mirrors that reveal who you truly are. As he wandered the world, testing himself against fighters of every style and belief, Ryu discovered a terrifying truth that separated him from everyone else. That his greatest enemy was not another warrior, but the darkness living inside him. The Satsui no Hado, a power born from rage and desire that promised instant domination at the cost of humanity, revealing itself fully in his battle with Sagat, where Ryu lost control and carved a scar into the Muay Thai king, winning the fight but losing his peace, realizing that power taken without restraint leaves wounds deeper than any defeat. From that moment forward, Ryu chose atonement over glory, walking a lonelier road while others chased titles. And though Ken Masters stood beside him as a brother and rival, confident, grounded, and embraced by the world, Ryu kept at arm's length. Their bond was never about rivalry, but reflection, with Ken representing the life Ryu could have had if he chose attachment, stability, and belonging, while Akuma stood as the ultimate warning, the living proof of the path Ryu refused to walk, a man who fully surrendered to the Satsui no Hado and discarded compassion for absolute power, forcing Ryu to fight not just an enemy, but a future version of himself over time. Ryu's battles grew quieter and more spiritual, his fists no longer seeking dominance, but truth, learning to strike without hatred, to fight without losing himself, eventually reaching a state where strength and restraint coexist. He no longer runs from the darkness, but understands it, mastering himself instead of suppressing his nature. And in Street Fighter 6, this evolution becomes undeniable, as Ryu is no longer a man chasing enlightenment or fleeing corruption, but a warrior at peace with the endless road, teaching through presence rather than words, accepting that the journey never ends because perfection is not a destination, but a discipline practiced daily. Every step, every breath, every fight until the very end. Ryu reaches the end of his road and realizes there was never a destination. Every battle, every scar, every loss was not meant to make him stronger in the eyes of others, but clearer in his own. The hunger for power fades, replaced by discipline that no longer wavers. He is no longer chasing control. He has learned restraint. The Satsui no Hado still exists, silent but present, like a shadow that follows but no longer leads. Ryu does not fear it, nor does he deny it. He walks knowing that true mastery is not erasing darkness, but choosing not to be ruled by it. So Ryu continues onward, not to prove himself, not to test his strength, but to live by it. His journey doesn't end with the final fight. It ends with the man who finally understands why he fights or at all. Ryu's journey is one of endless self-mastery. He walks the world with no home, no title, and no desire for fame, only the pursuit of strength through discipline. Every battle is a lesson, not a victory lap. While others fight to prove something to the world, Ryu fights to understand himself. That quiet resolve is what makes him timeless. What truly defines Ryu is his struggle with the Satsui no Hado, power always within his reach, yet he refuses to surrender to it. Instead of taking shortcuts, he chooses balance, learning when to restrain himself and when to let his spirit flow freely. This inner conflict turns his journey into something deeper than combat. It's a battle of the soul. In the end, Ryu's journey never truly ends. And that's the point. He isn't chasing a final boss or a grand destination. He's chasing growth. As the world changes and new fighters rise, Ryu keeps moving forward, fist clenched, heart calm, forever seeking the next step on the path. That is why Ryu isn't just a fighter, he is a philosophy. Ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate you guys for watching. I'm not begging for any validation whatsoever, but just know that your presence is more than just enough. I'll see y'all next time. Peace and blessings.